Good. Islands of tofu, adrift in a dashi sea. Miso, soft as clouds. What can I say? The simple soup in this lovely lacquered bowl brings out the poet in me. I speak, of course, of the often abused and misused sushi bar standard miso soup, which, when properly prepared, is a delicious and beguilingly nutritious brew embodying the very essence of Japanese cuisine. Now, learning to make this soup is in and of itself like, I don't know, giving a gift to your entire household. But what's more important is that it will introduce into your kitchen a small cast of pantry players, each of which possesses the power to elevate even your most humble victuals into... Although many Americans tend to think of Japanese cuisine only in terms of fresh foods, you know, sushi and the like, truth is the real workhorse ingredients of that island nation are pantry ingredients, which can be easily procured without a passport or a fistful of yen. Now, as a Japanese cuisine otaku or fanatic, I've been able to find just about everything that I could want on that newfangled World Wide Web. But your local Megamart probably hosts more Japanese items than you've ever thought, and your town may even host a small Japanese market. If so, seek it out, you must. Konnichiwa.
Konnichiwa.
Wow, I didn't get his accent. Must be from Osaka or something. Oh, wait, anyway, here's the Japanese market. Now, odds are good. You're not going to see a lot of English in places like this, but the Japanese do like to know what they're buying. So packages usually feature, you know, see-through windows like this, okay? And, oh, these are like my favorite. These are my favorite snacks. All right, check this out. It's like little nut bags, except look close. Those are nuts. They're little fried fishies. I love them. They're extraordinarily oishi. That means delicious. And I think... I'm getting sidetracked. The first item of business here is to brew up a dashi, or cooking stock. Now, what isn't served raw, grilled, or fried in Japan is generally simmered in dashi. And now that I think of it, dashi goes into most of the sauces that are served alongside foods that are raw, fried, or grilled. So it truly is a ubiquitous ingredient. Now, a lot of different things can go into a dashi, but two things are required. Okay, the first one, kombu. All right, now, kombu looks like something that you might make a wallet out of at camp, but it is actually a completely... Sorry, sumimasen, sumimasen, I'll buy it. Must have a lot of shoplifting here. Kombu is actually a dried form of kelp harvested from cold water. It's dried and packaged like this. Now, kombu is interesting stuff because it contains high amounts of glutamates, essentially all natural, unrefined, monosodium glutamate, which has the uncanny capability of making everything it touches taste, well, uishi, yummier, but more on that later. Kombu is also fascinating from a nutritional standpoint because although it's technically a vegetable, it contains high amounts of iodine, iron, potassium, B vitamins, and carotene. So it's delicious, unctuous, and, well, you could live off it forever. And might I remind you, not only do the Japanese live to a median age of 80, but when you're over there, the only fat people you see are sumo wrestlers and... Besides dashi, kombu can also be pickled, shredded, fried, used in a bunch of different ways. Now, the second big dashi ingredient is dried bonito. Okay, it's also called katsuobushi, and for that, well, we'll go to an expert. Katsuobushi, wakurasai.
Katsuobushi. Oh.
Hey, wait, no.
Katsuobushi.
Katsuobushi. Thank you. Yeah, I know. It looks like a block of wood, but it actually isn't. It is indeed a fish, a bonito, in fact. And it's... Of course. Thank you. As he points out, only the Japanese really call it bonito. The rest of the world refers to it as skipjack tuna, one of the few tuna that is really considered to be sustainable and healthy stocks worldwide. So how do you take a fish and make a little miniature baseball bat? Well, let's ask him.
Oh, hey.
First, the fish must be caught, and this is done by many fishermen on the boat, each with his own line. After they are landed, the fish are filleted into 2 pieces, and the really large ones halved again. The fish is then simmered in water for 20 minutes to set the protein structure. Then, the bones are removed, and the fish are smoked over oak or cherry wood for 6 hours a day for 2 weeks before being placed in the sun to dry. Then, the fish are moved into a cave containing a special mold. Then after 2 weeks, the fish are placed back in the sun, then moved back into the cave until the fish is done and hard as a piece of oak. Fascinating story. Well, now that the skipjack has been converted into katsuobushi, of course, it's not good for much until it is grated or shaved with a very specific device. I speak, of course, of the bonito shaver, which is a lot like a carpenter's plane. See the blade there? Only there's a little drawer underneath to catch the shavings. Please, demonstrate. This will be good. Luckily, only the most finicky Japanese cooks put up with that process. Most folks buy their bonito flakes like this, in nice, convenient, pre-shaved packs. This stuff is tasty, it's easy to use, and as long as it stays packaged, it is impervious to the march of time in your pantry. I'm going to get both of them. You know, he looks busy. I'll just... Traditional European-style stocks, like a chicken or veal stock, depend upon bones and connective tissue for flavor and texture, which is one of the reasons that they take a really, really long time to cook. Dashi, on the other hand, cooks very quickly, but there is an order to the operation that's important because kombu and katsuobushi give off their full flavors at different temperatures. So let's start with the kombu. Now, there is a considerable amount of flavor right up at the surface of these leaves. Now, this white powder is, in fact, not mold or dust, but a dried form of a carbohydrate. You can think of it as seaweed starch, and there's a lot of flavor in that. So just grab your scissors and snip. It's kind of leathery and is kind of tough. Whatever's left over, you can just seal up in a zip-top bag and keep until the cows come home. There. Now, this will give us all the flavor we need, but can't cook right away. First, it's got to soak. So into 2.5 quarts of water in a 4-quart saucepan for 30 minutes. That will allow for a rehydration of the product until it looks, well, pretty much like you would expect seaweed to look. Put this to medium-high heat until the water reaches between 150 and 160 degrees, and bubbles just start to break around the outside edge of the pot. Then evacuate the kombu, but don't throw it away. You can actually make a second stock from it later. Boost the heat to high. Measure yourself out 1/2 ounce, about 2 cups of katsuobushi. When the water boils, sprinkle the katsuobushi over the water. Drop the heat to low. Bring that just to a simmer and then stir every now and then for 10 minutes, no longer. Just like a chicken or veal stock, our dashi must be strained prior to use. I just use a hand strainer lined with a piece of muslin cloth, but you could use cheesecloth if you so prefer. But don't throw away those fish pieces. We're going to use them later. There. Let us now move to the second pillar of Japanese cuisine, tofu. Now, we've toyed with tofu on this program before, but let's refresh our knowledge base. It all begins with soybeans, which have been called the cow of Asia, an apt moniker considering the fact that tofu production is nearly identical to cheese making, only instead of cow's milk, you use soy milk. To produce soy milk, first you take the pods, you remove the inner beans, you dry the inner beans, crush the inner beans, and then cook the inner beans in water. Allow them to soak and then drain them to get this solid, which you can feed to your cows and goats, and soy milk. Now, soy milk has to be coagulated by adding either calcium sulfate from gypsum or magnesium chloride, which is called nagari, I think. That will leave you with something that looks a lot like a cheese curd. Now, just as with cheddaring, you can squeeze that curd to remove some of the moisture, and that'll leave you with firm tofu. Or you can leave the moisture inside, which will give you a very soft, creamy tofu, known in Japan as silken. Open pantry. The really nice thing about silken tofu is that unlike firm Chinese-style tofus, which are squeezed, packed in water, and then refrigerated, silken tofu can be squirted into shelf-stable aseptic containers where it coagulates under vacuum and therefore will keep for months, if not years, at room temperature. A potent, protein-laden pantry pal if ever there was one. Close pantry. Now, although we can all certainly appreciate the pudding-like consistency of silken tofu, if we tried to cube it up and put it in our soup, in this state, it'll just fall apart. What we need to do is to make it just a little bit firmer. Luckily, it's very porous stuff, and we can squeeze some moisture out of it. Just take a few pieces of paper towel. You can use any kitchen towel as long as it's lint-free. Roll it up thusly. Position another plate right on top. And squeeze it with just a bit of weight. I think 28 ounces should just about do it. Time? Well, I think that probably 20 minutes will do the trick. That'll be just enough time for us to talk about the ingredient that gave this soup its name. Miso is a paste made from soybeans that have been ground with a grain such as rice or barley that's been inoculated with a mold-based fermenting agent called a koji. Miso is often called Japanese peanut butter, not only because it looks, feels, and, well, to some extent, tastes like the American staple, but because it is nearly as ubiquitous.
미소! 가면 미니 다리스타야. 올레벨은 사라의 내게되세. 하. 시어미소. 호이사. 이서
Because of its subtle sweetness, white miso is often used in Japanese desserts.
아기 미소와 레드 미소 이 그릇된 시어미소. 레드 미소 리버 country style or Inca miso. In and ha hi. Yeah, hey.
Red miso is really great for braising meats like beef and pork, so I usually keep it around too.
What's the miso is I believe mini miso. You don't pay mini miso. You see the one of you? Hi.
I have absolutely no idea what he's saying, but I would say that if you're only going to keep one type of miso in the house, make it the iwase miso because it's just it's more convenient and versatile. Oh, and I want to talk about nutrition for a second.
Inside and fight the chemical in miso, good for the health and keep the for the yummy.
Yeah, whatever he said. But it is really important that you buy miso that isn't loaded up with chemicals, MSG, artificial flavorings, and preservatives. For shame. Hey, down. Wait. Wait, don't do it. Don't do it. It's okay. It's all right. Put that one down. Look, I'm gonna take these. Okay, I'm gonna take some red because I like it. I'm gonna take some of the white. I'm gonna take the iwase. I'm gonna take these all. Okay, just put them on my tab. Okay, bye.
Bye. Tab. No tab. Hey,
Time to make the soup. 8 cups, that's 2 quarts of dashi, go into a 4-quart saucepan over medium-high heat. Now, when the dashi reaches 100 degrees, ladle 1 cup off into a mixing bowl. Then whisk in 8 tablespoons of miso. Now, I'm going to go with 6 tablespoons of red miso and 2 of white because, well, that's just what I like. You can mix it up as you wish. Time to retrieve the tofu, and you will see that a lot of moisture has been squeezed out. That's a lot of moisture. Now, this is something we want to cut into cubes, about a ½ inch to 3/4 of an inch, but it's very soft, so use a sharp knife. Go slowly and be careful. I usually just do a slice at a time, knock that down into cubes until I'm completely done. It'll take you a little longer, maybe. There, we have attained a simmer. So whisk in the miso mixture and continue to just barely simmer. Don't boil it or it'll get grainy no matter what. Now at this point, go ahead and gently add the tofu, very gently so it doesn't fall apart. And 4 scallions, very, very thinly sliced. Then just kill the heat and let it sit for 2 to 3 minutes or until the flavor of the onion kind of infuses the stock. Then you may serve. Delicious. And with tons of protein, iron, and assorted vitamins and minerals, darn nutritious to boot. And of course, both miso and dashi are chock full of umami. Perhaps you've heard of this newly discovered mysterious fifth taste. Supposedly, it all started in 1908 when a scientist named Kikune Ikeda isolated an amino acid from seaweed called glutamate. Now, the flavor of this substance was elusive yet unique, and Ikeda named it umami, which means tasty in Japanese. Now, Ikeda quickly patented his formula for monosodium glutamate, and it became the big flavor success story of the early 20th century. Matter of fact, by the mid-30s, MSG was being dosed out from salt shakers in Japan right at the table, even at the table of the emperor. Obviously, MSG raked in some big old buckets of yen, which had to make guys like Ikeda pretty happy. It even made it into the U.S. despite a little bump in the road called World War II. MSG was a major ingredient in several famous American spice blends, and it really caught on with food manufacturers and Chinese restaurants. Then, in the 1960s, word started to spread of a mysterious ailment. All across our country, fans of Chinese chow began complaining of heart palpitations, numbness of the fingers, headaches, all eventually laid at the door of poor old monosodium glutamate, despite the fact that consequent studies never pinpointed the problem. Of course, the MSG industry wasn't giving up. They dug back through Ikeda's old research and rediscovered one particular word: umami. What followed was years of new tests and research projects, many of which were funded by the MSG industry. Not that there's anything wrong with that. What did they find? Several papers published in reputable scientific journals over the last few years suggest that what they found is a new taste. Now, keep in mind that our chemical senses, especially our sense of taste, tongue down, evolved to lead us to foods that we need to ingest and keep us away from things that we shouldn't, okay? Now, we can taste sweetness. Well, sweet is a marker for calories. We can taste salt. Salt is a required nutrient. Sour often signals the presence of vitamins, and bitter, well, many poisons taste bitter, so that one probably evolved as a warning. With all this in mind, doesn't it make sense that we would have a taste for, an appreciation of proteins and amino acids like glutamates? I mean, those are the building blocks of life, right? Well, of course it does. Is it amazing that these molecules would taste good? Of course not. Supposed umami-rich foods like ripe tomatoes, aged cheese, red wine, meat, and mushrooms are delicious, right? So here's my question. Why do we need another word for it? Why do we need to ultimately condense all that deliciousness, or whatever you want to call it, down into something we can easily package, sell, and sprinkle onto food? Why don't we just eat the delicious foods? I don't know. Maybe I've just been exposed to too much marketing in my time, but as far as I'm concerned, umami, you're all smoke and mirrors. As much as I love making and consuming my own miso soup, you know how I feel about unitaskers. That's right. Well, I feel the same about unitasking ingredients. So now that we've got the kombu, katsuobushi, miso, and tofu in the house, why not try one of these tasty and time-saving techniques? For instance, finely chop the bonito flakes left over from one batch of dashi, place in an 8-inch nonstick skillet over medium heat, and cook until almost completely dry. Then add 2 tablespoons of mirin, that's a sweetened cooking vinegar, 2 tablespoons of soy sauce, 1/2 teaspoon of plain old sugar, and continue to cook until it's almost dry. Then hit it with 2 tablespoons of white sesame seed. Toasted would be nice. And then move it to a plate or platter until it is completely cool and dry. As for serving options, over rice is nice. Well, they like it in my house at least. Hey, here's another good one. Place a 12-ounce block of silken tofu in a blender carafe with 1/2 cup of buttermilk, a tablespoon of lemon juice, 1 tablespoon of Dijon mustard, 1/4 cup of ketchup, then 1 teaspoon of kosher salt and 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper. Spin that up and then add 2 tablespoons of sweet pickle relish. There you go. As far as service options, well, you could use that as a special sauce on a hamburger. And of course, the taller, the better, wouldn't you say? Very, very good with pickles. Or you can use it in a traditional mode with just a bit of salad. Very nice indeed. Say, if you've got a couple tablespoons of white miso, you could mix that up with 2 tablespoons of honey. I like using chopsticks for this. Then just brush it onto 4 6-ounce pieces of black cod or halibut. Whew. Bake at 475 for 15 to 20 minutes, depending on the thickness of your fillets. Very umami, that's for sure. All right, let's dive into some dashi. 1 cup of dashi, in fact, in a glass or plastic container, along with 1/4 cup each mirin and soy sauce. Seal that up, give it a good shake, and you will have made tsuyu sauce, which is great on pasta. My favorite, open pantry. Japanese buckwheat or soba noodles. Sorry to spring a new one on you at the last minute, but most megamarts do carry them these days. It says right there, soba. You can read it somewhere. I don't know. Close pantry. Cook the noodles per the package instructions and then toss with enough of the tsuyu sauce to thoroughly soak them. And by the way, you want to serve these in the Japanese style. Cold. That's right. Perhaps garnished with some finely chopped green onions or shredded seaweed. Sorry we didn't get back to the kombu, but as you can see, once you open your pantry up to a little Japanese influence, things can get a little crazy. Tasty, but crazy. So, how you liking the neighborhoods? Boom. Okay, well, see you next time on Good Eats. Yo, ichinichi yo.